Warm greetings from the High 10. It's Everyday Shenanigans, and thanks for joining me. Happy weekend to all of you. Hope you all are safe and staying warm. It is the countdown to the Queen's birthday next Saturday. Yes, I will be the big 51. Amen. God is good. Thank you all for the kind words and support of Everyday Shenanigans. I truly appreciate it. But now I'm going to get into this story pertaining to Gabby, Petito, and Brian Laundrie. As most of you know, the FBI has given commentary pertaining to finding a notebook, and inside of that notebook are the writings of Mr. Brian Laundrie, and he admits to murdering Gabby Petito. If you need verification for the storyline, WFLA News Channel 8 is the source. Thank you for joining me.
Right now, we have new details coming to light as the FBI in Denver concludes its investigation into the Gabby Petito murder case. Good evening, I'm Keith Cate.
And I'm Stacy Scheibel. Thank you for joining us. News Channel 8's Justin Shecker joins us live from the FBI field office in Tampa with what we have learned late today. Justin.
Keith and Stacy, good afternoon to you both. Gabby Petito's parents met with FBI agents here yesterday before the Bureau provided its public update on the conclusion into their investigation. According to the FBI, Brian Laundrie confessed to killing Gabby Petito in written statements in the notebook found near his remains in Northport. Nearly 5 months after Gabby Petito disappeared during a cross-country road trip with her fiancé, FBI Denver Division Special Agent in Charge Michael Schneider says the investigation did not identify any other individuals other than Brian Laundrie directly involved in the tragic death of Gabby Petito. The FBI's primary focus throughout the investigation was to bring justice to Gabby and her family. 8 days after Nicole Schmidt reported her daughter missing on September 11th, Gabby's remains were found at the Spread Creek Dispersed Camping Area in Wyoming. The Teton County Coroner's Office says she died of blunt force injuries to the head and neck with manual strangulation. On September 17th, Laundrie's parents reported their son missing after he went hiking near their Northport home. After an extensive month-long search by law enforcement, Laundrie's parents located an item belonging to their son on October 20th in the Carlton Reserve. The FBI revealing near his remains, they found a backpack, revolver, and a notebook with a written confession. The Sarasota County Medical Examiner says Laundrie died of a self-inflicted gunshot. The attorney for Petito's parents, Richard Stafford, sent 8 on Your Side a statement saying, "We truly appreciate the FBI's diligent and painstaking efforts in this extremely complicated case. The quality and quantity of the facts and information collected by the FBI leave no doubt Brian Laundrie murdered Gabby." The Laundrie family attorney, Stephen Bertolino, says, "We can only hope with today's closure of the case, each family can begin to heal and move forward and find peace in and with the memories of their children." And the Petito family has started a foundation in memory of their daughter. Its mission is to help find missing people and to support organizations assisting victims of domestic violence. Live at the FBI field office in Tampa, I'm Justin Shecker, 8 on Your Side.
Thank you, Justin. You can read the FBI's entire statement about the conclusion of its investigation, as well as the statements from the Petito and Laundrie families on our WFLA app.
Okay, everybody, that's the said information. WFLA News 8 is the source. Wow. Finally, definitive answer. And prayers to the Petito and extended family. My deepest condolences. I'm sure this is a very trying time for them. They're still in mourning of their child. And now they get confirmation from the writings of Brian Laundrie that he did indeed murder their child. Autopsies also show that she was strangled. Blunt force trauma to the head and neck. Brutal death. Rage. Hate. Obviously. Mr. Laundrie had a lot of rage and hate towards Miss Petito. And we now have confirmation from the FBI. And I'm grateful that they did their job and concluded this investigation. And prayers that the family can find solace in the information that was revealed. As for the Laundries, there are no words for your behavior in this diabolical case and actions from your son. You had to have known he was guilty of harming the child, the girl child, Miss Gabby. because he took off in the wilderness, killed himself, stole your gun. You refused to speak to the family of Gabby. You refused to speak to the public. You hired an attorney, which made yourselves look guilty because law enforcement wasn't looking for you all. So what did you need a lawyer for? And what did he need a lawyer for? Your son, when he went off and killed himself. So you told us everything we needed to know. And hopefully with this finding, people will put all rumors to bed. It's the spoken word. Leave well enough alone. But you all were heinous in your acts. How you treated the Petito family. When they were trying to call you, make attempts to call and reach out to you. You refused to talk to them because you knew indeed your son had done something to Miss Gabby. That's why he came back in her van without her. Common sense. And you played possum up until the very end. And we also have information that they have gone, the Petito family, to retrieve her belongings from you all. So I hope you gave them everything that belonged to her. Everything. Rightfully so. Because it didn't belong to your son or you and your husband, Mr. and Mrs. Laundrie. You owe them that. Because you aided your son into this mess after the fact of killing this young lady. And then he went out as a coward and killed himself in a swamp. You hired an attorney and let the attorney be your mouthpiece when you should have been breaking your neck to talk to the Petitos. Because if it was your son missing and then found deceased, you would have been raised in holy hell. But it's sad that people have to put the shoe on to have empathy. But this is why we know that Brian had the potential for violence. He learned from his parents how to avoid, deny, deflect. And as they say, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Indeed, it does not. You all are sick, and you're just as diabolical as your son. And the interesting part is you all have to walk around with everybody knowing the truth finally that your son killed Gabby Petito. And you aided him to that swamp where he took his own life. And you played possum thereafter with the Petito family, Ellie, the public, your own family, daughter, and yourselves. And you have to live with that. You have to live with those decisions that you made when this story unfolded. The baffling part, besides you aiding your son, hiring an attorney, playing possum all those months, is that you have the nerve to ask the FBI for that stinky notebook. Why in God's name do you need it? You want the last writings of your son where he admits to killing this young lady? You want that? You're so self-absorbed and narcissistic that you want a stinky, raggedy, nasty, soiled notebook of the writings of a killer. Think about that for a second. Bad enough he's your own spawn. You brought that thing here, but you want the last diabolical writings of a killer. Your child, Brian Laundrie. How sick can you be? Did you need to verify it? Make sure it was his writing, his book, his things. Well, this commentary tells us what was found at the swamp alongside the remains. So you know it was your son and you knew it was his belongings. Because you told that when you went happily out there to help at the last minute. So indeed you know it's his belongings. I just can't understand how even at the very end of this tragic story of a death unwarranted, that you would want a damn notebook. You had the audacity to ask the FBI. You wouldn't even let them conclude the investigation weeks ago, petitioning for this stinky notebook. I mean, How low can you go? How low can you go? You have pictures of your son. You have things left behind in his room, his cars, clothing. But the only thing you petitioned to the FBI is a nasty notebook, soiled notebook, writings of a deranged, alleged human being that you brought here, your child. That's all you wanted. But you never thought of the Petitos when they were asking for their child's belongings. You all are something else. Indeed. You all are something else. The only person that can help you too is God. Because you all are just as sick as your son. You're just as sick as your son was. And I actually feel sorry for your daughter. I don't know how much she knew pertaining to this storyline. But have mercy. She knew nothing, had no knowledge. Didn't know of a confession that he was guilty, her brother. Truly innocent. She's stuck with having you all as parents. And she also has children. And I don't know what relationship she has with you all. But I wouldn't trust you as far as I could throw you. Seriously. Thank you all for joining me. This is Everyday Shenanigans. If you want to donate to the channel, $Big Angie 129 Cash App. Thank you all so much. I'm going to get into my next commentary. And this is pertaining to the women out west. One second, please. Okay. As you know, there's been a lot of talk. People assuming that Mr. Laundrie was behind. Sorry about that. That he was behind the deaths of the women out west. And I'm going to bring you commentary pertaining to that storyline as well. The first source that I brought you pertaining to confirmation that Brian Laundrie did murder Gabby Petito was by WFLA News 8. My second source is News Nation Now. And this is Answers Elude Murdered Utah Couple's Family 5 months later. Thank you all so much for joining me. This is pertaining to Crystal Turner and Kylan Schultz, the two women who were found brutally murdered out in Moab. Thank you all so much for joining me.
Brutally murdered at a campsite in Moab, Utah. That was also 5 months ago. And tonight there are still few answers, no arrests, and no named suspects. In a moment, I'm going to be talking with the private investigator, Jason Jensen, about what he has learned in this case. But first, loved ones want to keep the attention and the pressure on the case, including Crystal's cousin, speaking tonight for the first time. Family and friends still can't believe they're gone.
What were these women like?
Just fun and goofy and daring and brave, and they just live life to the fullest. Anytime you saw them, they were just happy and friendly and warm, and they just made you feel good.
Loved ones waiting on answers into what happened to Crystal Turner and Kylan Schulte.
We're trying to be patient, and we know that each day, hopefully, we get a little closer.
The newlyweds lived at a wilderness campsite 45 minutes outside of town. They enjoyed being on their own. Friends described them as fun, brave, and living life to the fullest. Until one night when a family friend, Cindy Sue Hunter, says there was a red flag.
Well, they had told their friends at the bar, this is my understanding, it could be different, that there was a creepy dude, a creeper dude, and he was too close.
The night of August 13th, the couple went to Woody's Tavern, then visited with friends who begged them not to go back to the campsite. It's the last time they were seen alive.
Let me stop right here. In this said commentary, you will see a brief clip of one of the women in the in the tavern. So they have now released a video of the women on that said night when they were out at Woody's Tavern. This is my first time seeing this said information and seeing this video. So when you go into the queue of News Nation Now, the title of this video is Answers Elude Murdered Utah Couple's Family 5 Months Later. If you need verification for the storyline, once again, a video has now been released of the women's last night at the said tavern. Thank you for joining me.
Even though they made the offhanded comment, if we were murdered, it was him. I don't think they thought that was ever going to happen, or I don't think they would have went back up there.
When days went by with no word from them, Kylan's dad, out of state, called Hunter, asking if she could help.
Well, I drove around for almost 5 hours, stopping people, showing them pictures, asking if they'd seen them, telling them, please, if you see this car or these girls, call the police.
But some intuition drove her a little bit further. That's when she spotted the couple's car and nearby made a horrifying discovery.
I saw a body in the water, and I immediately turned away. I didn't want to know that was a body there. I wanted to be wrong.
A medical examiner's report revealing the women were shot multiple times.
Well, at first I didn't think it was real. I thought there'd been a mistake.
Fast forward to today, despite a number of tips, search warrants, even persons of interest, there are still no answers on who's responsible. At one point, rumors speculated that Brian Laundrie could be a suspect, but that theory has since been ruled out.
Their campsite. Over here, somebody had a campfire ring.
Salt Lake City private investigator Jason Jensen has spent months looking into the case.
We've seen tragedy this year, tragedy like we've never seen before in Moab.
And although the Moab Police Department is not involved in the investigation, Assistant Chief Braden Palmer admits it's left people on edge.
It's safe to say that the community is concerned.
But 5 months later, Crystal and Kylan's loved ones remain desperate for answers, hoping a killer who is still out there is finally brought to justice.
You would want someone to come forward for your family member. So do it for hours if you know something.
Private investigator Jason Jensen is joining us live tonight to talk about the case. Jason, as always, we appreciate your time. Are you any closer to narrowing in on the person responsible for their murders?
You know, it sure feels like it, but I think the reality is we're still looking at persons of interest. We haven't really narrowed down to somebody that stands out greater than somebody else. So to answer your question, we're still looking, and we need more of the public input to try and nail down who this person was by asking for dash cam footage or drone video or something like that can identify this individual's vehicle in the area so that, you know, law enforcement has someone to narrow down to.
So give me some more specifics of exactly what you're looking for, the time frame from the public, anybody who may have been in that area near the time.
Sure, just like the Grand County Sheriff's Office has identified recently, as of yesterday when they released a recent press release, we've narrowed down the date of the death to be August 14th, specifically before daylight, in my opinion, because the night that they were at Woody's Tavern and they were asked not to go back to camp was late on the 13th. So by the time they would have arrived to camp would be about 1 a.m. on the 14th. So given their attire at the time, they were likely already in bed, ready to, suck in for the night. Next thing you know, this terrible event takes place, and their bodies were literally dragged into this little irrigation ditch, and their bodies were found 4 days later. So very tragic. It's not like an urban setting where you have neighbors, ring cameras, doorbell cameras, things like that can identify a suspect's vehicle. Here we're hoping that satellite images or dash cam footage or drone video, since there's a wedding reception area nearby, somebody probably has video of a distant shot of this campsite where this killer's vehicle is plainly in sight.
Mm-hmm. Do you have access to that satellite imagery that you're looking for?
We've asked several companies, and they've come forward with what they have. Much of it is way too far skyward, so you can't really get good detail of the details you would need to see a vehicle. But we know that we haven't hit every one of them. Some of them have proprietary rights to it, and so we're hoping to find somebody that has that information so that they can tell us what the cost would be to get it from this private entity.
I know you're limited in what you can share and some of the details of your investigation, but of those persons of interest that right now you have on your list, are these people still local in Moab, or are they transient in other places?
Some are, and literally some of them that have come to our attention were visiting at the time. So, we're getting a lot of national attention because there are more people that visit Moab than actually reside there. So we're getting information from all around the country and in some outside countries as well.
Well, I know that you don't want this case to go cold, and neither do the families of Crystal and Kylan. It is important that we get some answers. Jason, I always appreciate you coming on and giving us any new information you have. We'll be checking back in with you. Thank you, as always.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for watching. Click the...
All right, everybody, that's News Nation now if you need verification for the information. What a horrific case. No different than the death of Gabby Petito. All deaths in the general area. This is terrible. Many people speculated it was Brian Laundrie because one of the women worked at the co-op and perhaps had a bullseye view of the altercation between Petito and Laundrie out on a public street. But now we have law officials telling us that that theory of Brian Laundrie as a suspect has been ruled out. I can only speculate that they've already ran ballistics on the gun that was found in a swamp in Florida and compared it to evidence of where these women were found deceased. The sick part is that they went back to this campsite after talking about somebody creeping around the site. You also hear in this commentary that satellite imagery was attempted to gain footage of the ground, but it was grainy. Very interesting, very interesting. We also get information that the women were in their night clothes. So they had returned and were allegedly trying to get sleep. But to their surprise, someone had other things in mind. You also get information that the women were dragged to the area where they were found. Now we have to ask ourselves the ultimate question. Who is the culprit or culprits? Is it more than one? Because dragging them, what would one be doing while one woman's being dragged? Stay woke. Are we now talking about two people? The suspect list. Some are local, some are out of the area, some were visiting. See, this is where the danger comes in trying to find the suspect. This is an offbeat place. Barren land. When you look at the landscape, it's barren. A paradise for discarding human beings. Because the land is so vast. A lot to search and look for if you want to hide a body. And as this male has given in this commentary, a lot of the foot traffic are visitors. And that's where your problem will come in trying to locate a suspect. You don't have a lot of surveillance of the area where the women were living on this campsite. That's going to be your problem. Because as they're saying, this isn't like a neighborhood, a street apartment building where you have cameras, doorbell cameras, cameras on buildings, businesses. You're out in the middle of nowhere. So who's going to tell it? Who else was on the site with them, staying? Was there other people camping? See, there's so many things to this story. How many suspects? What was the motive? Were there other eyewitnesses? Were there other people staying on the campground at the same time? Did the person come by foot, by car? How did they get there? Were they camping? Or were they just out lurking, looking for victims? And where is our killer now? Where is the killer of these two women? And are we talking about multiple killers? Did they have a partner? Because the women only mention a creepy guy. So what I have to ask myself is the ultimate question. While she was harming one partner, what was the other partner doing? Stay woke. Because you have to ask that. There's no way you could kill two at the same time unless you walked up on them and shot them dead. Surprised them. But this commentary says they were dragged. So if I don't know you, nobody knows I know you, I'd kill you where I found you. Which I would be assuming in their van where they were sleeping. So why were they dragged to their final location? Were they outside in their sleep clothes, around a fire, or just sitting out talking, enjoying the night air? Guess we'll never know. But this information is telling that the women were dragged. So that led me to wonder, how many suspects are we speaking of? Is it more than one? Because why drag them somewhere else when there's nobody around to identify you? And if you walked up on them in the van, isn't that where you would leave them deceased? So that leads me to believe possibly the women were outside. Maybe they were sleeping outside of the van and not inside, or sitting outside when the perpetrator walked up. Very interesting information. Prayers to the family of these two young ladies. I'm praying for justice. I'm praying that someone will have some type of information to lead to the killers of these two young women who did not deserve this. And I do believe that they were sexually assaulted because of how their clothes were left on the bodies at the time of death. It's very heinous. And it is odd to find 3 women murdered in a general area in a place that gets no crime. So it was natural for people to assume Mr. Laundrie could possibly be a suspect. And now we have confirmation that he did kill Gabby Petito. So why would people not think it's possible, if they cross paths, that he harmed these women? Could he have been a woman hater? Not just mad at his girlfriend for whatever transpired on that day, or issues that had built up and he lost control. Could it be Brian Laundrie was a woman hater? Because one would have to say, in the case of the 2 women, this persons hate women. And it also could be an issue of a hate crime, because these were 2 women in a marriage. So could it be this is a gender issue? I don't like 2 women, gay women. Who knows? Who knows? And that's the scary part, is the not knowing. I want to thank you all for joining me. Have a safe and blessed weekend. This is commentary by News Nation Now pertaining to the investigation into the deaths of these 2 women. The first source is WFLA News 8 pertaining to Laundrie and Petito case. Confirmation that he did murder Gabby Petito. I also brought you information that the parents met with the FBI and also making attempts to get their daughter's belongings from the Laundries. That has also been reported. I'm praying that they've gotten everything that belonged to their child, because they rightfully deserve everything that she had. And I'm also curious to all of what was left behind by Gabby Petito. We finally have answers in one case, but I'm praying that we get answers in the deaths of these 2 young ladies, because this is heinous. And the sick part is they were murdered, no suspects, no arrests, and the persons are still walking around out here. And God forbid they are drifters, vagabonds. They could be anywhere. He could be anywhere. Thank you for joining me. This is Everyday Shenanigans. Prayers to all the families. Amen.